reality. Okay, hi guys, welcome to today's video. Today my beautiful sister when you're doing her makeup.
Oh my god, see, we can see like squanging in my BTV.
So you're doing her makeup, very impromptu. So I'm not gonna do a talk through. I'm gonna do a like in the record explanation afterwards, if that makes sense. So without further ado, let's get into this video. No, my nails, gosh. Wow. So let's get into this look. I'm starting off with the Nivea micellar water, and I'm using a wet wipe to just clear any debris or any dirt from her face for a fresh canvas as we are about to begin the makeup. And then the next thing, I'm going in with the Layla Skin Rose Water just as a face prep and to start plumping and hydrating her skin, just so it can give her skin a beautiful plumpiness and freshness and dewiness. Next, I'm going in with the Davies pencil in number 3. I actually went off camera and used some Sacha Buttercup just to prep and mattify her brows so that our eye pencil would be able to stick on and to show up more on her skin. And if you have a problem with eyebrows, I do have an in-depth tutorial for beginners on how you can do your eyebrows step by step. So right now I'm just outlining the bottom part with my very sharp pencil, and then I'm also going to outline the top part in small motions. As you guys can see, I'm using my pinky finger as an anchor and just making sure that the line is as straight and crisp as possible, following the natural way that her eyebrows go. She does have a lot more eyebrows at the beginning, so for the end I just continued and outlined in the way that her eyebrow usually goes. And then next up, I am very gently filling in the brows, and I'm using the same pencil but very light motion. What you want to do here is make sure that you put or apply as little pressure as possible, just so you can achieve hair-like strokes, as opposed to pressing the pencil so much and then the lines become so harsh and so dark and so thick and not natural. So I'm doing the same thing with both of them, and then I'm combing them through or drawing the outlines in an upward to going outward motion in the same way that her natural eyebrows usually arch. And then I'm making sure that I fill in any areas that her eyebrows are sparse, and then I'm using my disposable spoolie wand to just comb through and make sure that each and every part of her eyebrow is evenly distributed with the eyebrow pencil. So next up, we're going in with concealer. This is the LA Girl Pro Conceal in the shade Fawn, and I am using it just to clean up the middle part of her brows, just because I don't want a halo look at the beginning or at the end. For that, I'm going to use a slightly darker foundation for that. So I'm going in with this very small but angled brush, and I'm using the side of my brush to just slowly clean up the eyebrows and making sure that my lines are as crisp as possible. And for this, you want to make sure that you do it slowly by slowly, and if you do end up making a mistake, you can always go back in with a sharp eyebrow pencil and then go in the area that you have messed up and then just fill in the same area. So I'm dragging the concealer a little bit towards the front and then making sure to spread the product downward as well. Next up, I'm going in with the Florrie Roberts foundation stick. This is in the shade Java, and it's close to her skin tone, so I'm using that to clean up the beginning and the end part of her eyebrow, just to make sure that her eyebrow looks natural, as natural as possible. And then I'm going to blend out the whole area of the concealer using my Reina Beauty sponges. These sponges are really soft and really beautiful, especially when it comes to blending. They don't absorb too much product, so that's what you also want to look for in a sponge. Make sure that you're not using those sponges that are really hard and they just have a lot of product buildup. So I'm making sure that I'm evening out and blending the whole eyelid area with the concealer. I'm not dragging it all the way downwards because I am going to use an eyeshadow primer, and just making sure that everything is well distributed and looking amazing. Next, I'm going in with the Technique Canvas Eyeshadow Primer, and I am using this to just prep her lid for our eyeshadow. I'm using a very small amount of this because it's very pigmented and a little goes a long way. And I'm using a fluffy brush just to diffuse that product all over her lid. And then later on, I went in with a beauty blender just to make sure that everything was nice and even. I then went ahead and used my Sacha Buttercup with the same blending brush to just lightly set. I do like using this method, especially when I am doing a matte eyeshadow look and no shimmers involved. But I would recommend if you're doing a shimmer look, then you don't have to set your base. But setting your base really looks very nice for matte eyeshadows and also makes sure that it doesn't crease. I'm going in with the NK Cosmetics Fabulosity palette, and I'm going in with this dark brown, using my brush from Nedgewald, and then I'm just slowly going to add that product onto my outer eyelid area. And then I went ahead using the V Beauty powder palette, and then I used this beautiful brush from Bella and a light matte powder shade from the V Beauty palette, and then I just added it to this beginning part of my eye look, and I made sure to really tap in very light motion just to make sure that everything is set in place and that it doesn't move around, and that the color is evenly distributed on the whole eyelid. And I'm now going in with the same brush that I used for the dark brown for the outer edge, and then just blending everything out together just so it can look nice and diffused and seamless, because I don't want any harsh lines. It's not a cut crease. I want everything to look nice and diffused. So going back and forth with my brush until it's the desired look. Next up, I'm using this light brown from the same NK Fabulosity palette just to add to the beginning light shade and the dark brown, just to have that seamless transition between the very light to the very dark. And I'm using a fluffy brush for this to diffuse the two colors together. Next up is eyeliner. I'm using the Illegal eyeliner and just very gently drawing on a not so dramatic cat eye. And I ask her to open her eyes so I can measure out, and then after I measure out where I want my cat eye, I ask her to close, and then I very lightly apply the eyeliner. Next, I went in with this Usha's blue eyeliner, and I did it off camera and went ahead to moisturize. I'm using the Nivea Cream Moisturizer. I love this for almost all skin tones, and I'm applying a generous layer because the products that I'm gonna be going in with are matte, so I want to make sure that the base is nicely hydrated just so her skin doesn't feel dry or non-moisturized. I just like applying a thick layer. The good thing with this moisturizer, it doesn't matter how much product you apply, it blends in so nicely and sits really well underneath makeup. Guys, this method is called beating the face.
Oh no!
The next up is eyelashes. She likes pretty dramatic lashes, so we use the Lanel hair bonding glue just to apply that. Kitambo, I used to be such a skeptic of this glue, but I've tried it out and it works really well. Would I recommend it to someone yet? I don't know, because I've been using it just for a short time, but so far so good. I really love it. And I'm also using this eyelash applicators just to make sure that there's a nice seamless blend between her natural lashes and her falsies. And then I go in with my disposable mascara wand, and with a bit of mascara just lightly comb through the lower part of the inner part of her eyelashes, just to make sure that everything is nice and dark and looks yummy. Looks yummy. Next up is primer. I'm using the Rimmel Stay Matte Primer and applying a generous amount all over. I did reduce the amounts that I applied underneath her eyes just because I wanted underneath her eyes to be nice and moisturized. And again, I do like using my hands just to distribute the product all over, and it gives me a really beautiful and seamless look. So for foundation, I'm using the Maybelline Matte and Poreless in the shade 368, the Divas Cosmetics foundation in the shade Bronze 4, and I'm also using the same Reina Beauty blender to just evenly blend in the foundation into her skin. I did make sure that my primer had sat nicely on top of her skin just before I went in with the foundation, and I'm going in tapping motion just to make sure that everything looks nice and seamless. And I also applied some of the product onto her ears and also on parts of her neck. And for concealer, I'm using the Divas Cosmetics concealer in the shade medium bronze to highlight all the areas that the light naturally hits her face. And I'm using a small detail brush, the same brush that I used to apply my concealer, just to apply the concealer all over. And I would recommend giving this a couple of seconds to dry down, because it will give you more of an opaque and fuller coverage look underneath her eyes. I also used a detailed brush to just clean the eyeliner and to make sure it was as sharp and neat as possible. For contour, I use the same Maybelline Matte and Poreless foundation in the shade 368 because it's slightly darker than her, just to lightly contour. I don't like going in with a shade that is so dark. I like going in with something that looks natural to contour, and the same thing as the highlight. And I also went in with my beauty blender to just lightly and gently dab into the product and blend out the concealer, and making sure that you take your time in especially areas that have a little more concealer, like underneath the eyes, and making sure that the product is evenly distributed. And if you have put too much, then you can always use a tissue and dab away the excess. Now onto powder, I'm using the same Sacha Buttercup setting powder to just lightly set the areas that I've applied concealer, and I'm using the same beauty blender from Reina Beauty to just lightly set. I don't bake nowadays just because unless the client likes it or has extremely oily skin, otherwise a set of the same powder will just do a great job and also will make your foundation and your makeup in general not look cakey. So I just apply a thin layer of that powder and evenly distribute it all over her face, and then I'm going to go in later on with this powder palette, the same one, V Beauty, to just set her whole face. I'm going to use her exact shade color to set everywhere on her face, and then I'm going to use a slightly darker color for contour and also a slightly lighter one just to set in the areas that we put highlighter. So she's not a big fan of blush, but I did go in with a very light layer of an orange color just right on her cheeks, just to bring back that color, because what tends to happen with foundation is sometimes it flattens the whole face and like gives no dimension. So I went ahead also and used a dark brown just underneath her eyes to give a slight smokiness before I went in with an eyeliner. Now I'm setting the whole face with the LA Girl Shimmer Spray. It's a beautiful spray and it gives such a glowy look even when you've applied matte products on the skin. And I'm covering her eyes just because I don't want her eyeshadow to look patchy. And then for the second setting spray, I did use the Maybelline just to set everything in place. And I went in with the Joy Lips lipsticks, matte lipsticks, just to give a nice ombre look. The shades that I used are Plummish Cherry. I'm not sure the name, but I think I'll put them down in the description box, and just give the darker color on the outer perimeter of her lips, and then the lighter color on the inner, just to give a bit of dimension on the lips. And this is the final look. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this tutorial. I tried to make it as simple and as detailed as possible. Let me know if it's something that you would wear and where you would wear it to. And don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed the video, share with a friend who would enjoy this video, and of course subscribe. And until next time, bye guys.